Hi, and welcome to the Write the Story podcast, where we divulge tips on plotting as you listen in to us outlining a short story. This episode has been brought to you by our listeners and supporters on Patreon. If you want to help bring more podcasts like this one to life, please visit www.patreon.com/amwritingfantasy.
Welcome to episode 3. I'm Autumn. Before I call Jesper, let me bring you up to speed with what we have so far. We are continuing to develop our characters for the short story we are plotting. Last week, we began fleshing out the characters, especially Dramna, who is our protagonist. We only got about halfway through though, and just to the point where everything we'd done on creating her attributes, some motives, figuring out her enneagram and her level, all of that was about to make sense. And then we stopped. We ran out of time. So not that we meant to stop on such a cliffhanger for you, but this week we are hoping to finish developing Dramna, starting with her inner conflict and then adding a bit more detail to hopefully her parents and Ubri, her love interest. Hopefully we can get all that done today in our call. Okay, with that, I'm going to call Jesper.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm doing better, but I'm still coughing once in a while, so that's life.
That is life. I'm so glad you're doing better from COVID. That was really, I can't believe you actually caught that.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Just a little crazy, some parental worries with my own parents getting sick, but everything's going good, and I'm juggling tons of flaming cannonballs, but I'm keeping them all in the air and haven't scorched myself yet, so we're good.
All right. So should we talk some story?
Let's talk story.
Okay, I think where we left off was concerning inner conflict.
Oh, yeah, that's what I remember too. Great.
Yeah. So I found our guidebook, and I was thinking to start out by just reading a bit stuff aloud here.
Okay, great. That would be good to get me back into the mindset.
Yeah, and it should then help explain what we're going to do here, and also for the listener, of course.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to read out some stuff aloud here. While characters will normally look for ways to improve themselves to become the best version they can possibly be, they have a force that constantly works against them. That is the flaws. The flaws can be categorized as the character's weaknesses. As in real life, some flaws are small, almost insignificant, as they develop during one's upbringing, yet others cause an effect as strong as heating ice melting away the character's chance of self-growth and well-being. You guessed it, it's not the insignificant flaws that we are interested in. By adding one fatal flaw to your protagonist, you will bring to life a shortcoming that might very well be the character's ultimate downfall. As storytellers, this is the sort of juice that keeps us going. We can tell you that readers gulp it up too. That's what we wrote.
Well, that was good.
Yeah. Then it says, at the beginning of the story, the flaw will block any chance of success. The catch is that the hero won't recognize the flaw for what it truly is, and instead confuse it for a core strength. Some protagonists might know themselves well enough to actually understand that this imperfection is holding them back, yet they won't see any other course of action but to abide by the flaw. Why? Because at some point in the past, a defining emotional wound caused this flaw. When it did, it wreaked so much havoc that the character will do anything in their power not to experience the same pain again.
Okay.
It's not until the character conquers the fatal flaw that he or she will transform into a complete person, just like the larva being a beautiful butterfly. Right.
Nice. So, yeah, we're almost like getting into character arc here, but not quite. But I do have one question, is how we're talking about a fatal flaw. How is that different from the deep belief, the belief that we came up last time where Dramna feels she is unworthy, and that's a core inner belief. So how is this different from that?
So I don't think necessarily that it's that different, because the inner conflict or the fatal flaw here is basically a lie that the character is telling themselves, right? So it must be like because of a false belief that followed in the wake of whatever incident happened during their upbringing. So that gave birth to some sort of lie, and this lie is what the character believes about him or herself, which is fairly aligned with the deep rooted belief that we talked about last time. It could be that the protagonist thinks that what happened was his or her own fault. Maybe the character believes in their own unworthiness of love and happiness, which is very aligned with what we talked about last time for Dramna.
Yeah, it really is, because we had said that, she feels this buried conviction of hers is that she feels unworthy and she'll never find her place, she'll never belong, and she'll never be fully independent. So it is a lie she's telling herself, but she does firmly believe it. So in many ways, it is part of her fatal flaw, but it's not quite a conflict. To make it an inner conflict, she would also have to be fighting it as well.
Yeah, and we actually did write on the bottom of page 127. It actually says at the bottom, the lie she's telling herself is the same as the buried conviction.
Oh, look, so good instinct. So we kind of already have this. So it's that she feels unworthy. Oh, look, we're
Yes.
good. We actually already had this, and it makes so much sense.
Yes, but I think it's good to, just talk through that, because that aligns us now to talk about the character arc then.
Yes.
And it reminds us as well of where we're coming from, because this is basically sort of the heart of her personality.
Yes, and I see that very much, that she pushes herself so much to be a fully independent person while also still accepting her parents' support, like letting her parents come and bring her food, letting her parents give her a really nice tent, because she feels like she can't be independent even though she's out there pretending to be independent. It's this really kind of a tightrope walk that she's doing.
Yes, indeed. So that brings us into the concept of the character arc. Now, I think probably most of us and listeners know what a character arc is. So it's basically, it goes something like this. A character starts out as quote unquote ordinary, the type of person that the reader can identify with probably. And then a bunch of things happens and it causes the character to change and become the extraordinary, the kind of person that the reader would like to be, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
that's basically it in a nutshell.
Well, that's one type of character arc. So that's the heroic or the positive arc. I mean, I know that's where we're already going with this story, so we're fine, but we could do a steadfast arc where the character has a belief that she believes she's unworthy, and the ending she proves that's true. So all she does is prove that her original conviction is true. That's steadfast. Or if she starts off on a good path and then fails, and even though she really could be a wonderful dynamic person and she could be fully independent, but she decides no, at the last second she pulls back and says, no, I need support, I need someone to always take care of me. That would be a failed character arc. But we're both kind of like, we already decided that we want this one to have a bit of a positive spin. The world is a dark enough place, so I think she's on a positive arc, and she's going to prove that her buried conviction that she is unworthy and will never be independent, that's going to be wrong, and she's going to realize it and embrace in becoming an independent, really vibrant teenage elf who's working to become an assassin. Just what every teenage elf wants to be.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
Sign me up, yeah.
but it was basically, we talked about the levels of development in the Enneagram last time, so it is basically moving her from one level and up to the next level, as we talked about
Yes,
last
and so
week.
yeah, and if we had kept it steadfast, she would stay at level 5, and if she was failing, she'd be dropping down to like level 6. But she's going up to level 4. She's going to be on a path to be the person who shows up in our trilogy later on.
Okay, so I think next up, Autumn, we're gonna start sort of trying to use some of all the stuff we did last week also as building blocks to actually, now we're going to get to the stage where it's going to be concrete, and we're going to have some concrete stuff that we're going to put into the actual story,
Oh, excellent.
building on all the stuff we talked about last week.
We were so close last week, but I had to go. So I'm so excited to now put all of our, as what do we say? It was like create your cooking, and we got out all the ingredients, and now we're ready to actually make something. So I'm so excited to put it all together.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a soup or a sandwich, but we'll see.
Well, it's if it's a sandwich, it's going to be one that bites back. So that's all that matters.
Right. So last time we did the inner motive. What was that again?
That was independence. Dramna's inner motive is she wants to be independent.
Right. So next step is, in order to raise the personal stakes of the character, we need scenarios that challenge their inner motive in concrete ways.
Mm.
So the first one is, the character's need and motive are present even before we turn the first page of the novel. Or to put it differently, going through everyday life, the character already has the need and motive embedded inside their person. So the first question is, what specific and realistic action can happen in the first scene to show how the protagonist is trying to fulfill his or her need? And then it says, the answer doesn't have to be anything monumental. Simplicity is perfectly fine. The
Yes.
important part is that it's something that the character does rather than something he or she is thinking or talking about doing.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's sort of, I mean, when we're writing novels, I talk about like the intro being a mini short story where the result of that story is the inciting incident and sets off the novel plot. But here we're in a short story, so it's a lot more condensed, and we're not going to do like a whole short story before the short story begins. This is really just an opening scene, and it's supposed to be showing her inner motivation, so her independence.
Well, yeah, so this is not the inciting incident or anything. I will
Okay.
get back to that in later episodes.
Yeah.
So this is just inside the first scene, whatever that
Hmm.
first scene will, we don't even worry about what's happening in the first scene right now. We're just thinking about what can we do to show Dramna's inner motivation in the first scene.
Okay. Well, I like that. And
So
since
if
her
she has
inner
a drive towards independence, yeah.
so knowing that it's her inner motivation, I mean, and it's pretty easy because we have her set up, on the shore, so she's probably feeling like she's rather independent and living a life without her parents. And I mean, it could be you're like doing simple things. So you're saying so something simple. She could be trying to even walk along the shoreline on her own. She could be making food. She could be sneaking off with her friends. But again, that's independent, but not quite independent because obviously she'd be with her friends. But maybe not taking their support to follow a trail. I mean, for her, being blind, showing independence can be very, very simple, just doing something on her own and not taking assistance.
Yeah, the not taking assistant part was actually what came to my mind as well. Maybe she's offered something, or and then says, no, I'll take care of it myself, or
Hmm.
something like that. That'll definitely show independence in a very active way.
Yeah.
That she chooses it rather than it being, or it just happening, or being forced upon her, or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah. Or having whoever's there. Like, I could so see that with like knowing parents and even my mom, they're always like, I can help you. Her going, no, I can open this jar once you leave. And then, yeah, that's her choosing it instead of having the mother saying, no, you're going to do this as soon as I leave. This is something that's up to you to do it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think having her choose she has to be the active participant to be showing she's making this choice.
So could there be some sort of festival or some special occasion going on, and somebody wants to bring her something special to eat or something, and then she doesn't want it?
I could see that. I guess I hadn't envisioned her being anywhere but at the shore. So unless it was something that was down the beach, I was envisioning her like when she's in this year of solitude to be able to hear Naveen, that she'd be alone except for, people bringing her food or doing things like
Yeah,
that.
that's what I meant as well. That
Yeah.
she is alone on the beach, but maybe there is some sort of special festival or celebration in the city, and
Hmm.
because of that, her parents thinks that she shouldn't be cheated out of the nice food at least, so they want to bring her something, and then she doesn't want it or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'm thinking from her point of view. So we can't show what her parents are doing in the city, but we could have it in the opening scene of them bringing her something and her saying, no, I do not need to take part. I'm doing
Yeah, that's
this.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, that would work. I definitely think something like that where she either does it on her own or she refuses something because she's doing her own thing and she's fine with that.
Okay, let's go with that. And then basically the next step is we need to build some more on that, which the next step is called escalation. So this is just how can the protagonist's need and motive play an even greater role?
Okay,
And
well,
what is the protagonist going to do about it? Focus is on action.
okay. So a greater role than just of wanting to be independent than what we've just shown.
Yeah, it's sort of like taking it up a notch,
Hmm.
that this was like the very small way of showing like she wants to be independent, so we need to take that up a notch and making it a bit more impactful. Like this is not in the same scene, right? This is probably a bit later in the story, so something that happens where we again can show that she wants to be independent, but it should be a bit more impactful.
Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely think that there should be lots of ways of her showing her independence, but she's not going to be hard. She's she she is a very forceful character in her own right, even though she's a teenager in this story at the moment and still discovering herself. I could almost see we already have her like turning away her parents, so I almost think she should turn away someone else or be doing something like we do want to have her going out with her friends, or we could have Ubri coming and having something there. But I could also see Ubri being part of her conflict, which we can get to in a little bit, because I know she's going to want to rely on him or be tempted to rely on him a little bit as she's starting to fall in love with him.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could sort of, instead of generating a conflict per se, or her having another refusal of something, could we turn it on its head basically and have something happen that reminds her of what she doesn't have? For example, if we're saying that she has a strong drive for independency, and also because she's telling the lie to herself that she doesn't belong and she's not good enough, etc. Could we have something happen where it reminds her maybe of a situation where she did feel like she was good enough,
Mm.
and then use that in one way or another to sort of drive home how it's her sense of independence is what makes her try to get back to that situation or reinvigorate that feeling of
I,
actually feeling like you belong.
I like that. I mean, because what came to mind immediately, partially because maybe I'm living on the coast again at the moment, was a storm or something coming up that sort of wrecks her tent or something, does something that so she half wants to, she's scared and alone and thinks she needs help, or even if it's just as much to fix it up again, and instead she does have maybe a memory of like no, or finds the confidence of I can do this, I can do this on my own, and she does do it on her own.
Yeah, and maybe she was, much younger, and she was on a, I don't know. I don't think Wild Elves goes on a camping trip, but I was just thinking like if she was on a similar trip when she was younger, or something, and then there was a storm. Maybe they weren't in a tent or anything, but there was a storm. Something happened, and it caused a situation where she had to, like, I don't know, maybe stayed in a hunter's lodge somewhere or whatever, and they had to stay overnight together with her parents or something, and her parents of course didn't like the fact that there was a storm and they had to stay, but for her as a young kid it
Mhm.
was nice. She actually enjoyed it, and she felt like she was the center of their attention in that cabin at that time, and she loved it.
I could see that. I could see it more as a memory to a part of something going on at the same time. I don't want to do it just as a flashback to give her confidence. I want something to be happening at the time, like a storm as well, some kind of danger that she's in that she has to overcome. Because I don't like just flashbacks. They just seem to not be an active element in the story. They're more passive.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think necessarily we have to write like a full flashback about it. It could just be a sentence saying like it was like the time blah blah, and then
Hmm.
more things happen.
Yeah. Well, I think if it's anchored in, like I said, like a current storm or a current situation that she has to overcome and she's losing faith, and then she, just because it is maybe raining again, she's like, oh, this kind of reminds me of this time as a kid. And she gives her the boost to, get through it. I think that would be really cool, as long as it's anchored in something going on at the moment and not just like waking up one morning going, oh, it's a bad day. Oh, I
Yeah,
remember I got through this. Yeah.
yeah, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that works.
I think that works great.
Okay, next step is what we call collision.
Okay.
So it says that this collision does not have to follow right after the escalation. It could, but it doesn't have to. So it could be much later in the story. But this is basically the question here is how can the protagonist come into a direct collision course with her need and motive? And what is the protagonist going to do about it? So, in other words, this basically means like we probably need to put her in a situation where she just have to rely on the help of somebody else. She cannot use her independency in this situation.
Yeah, that's definitely what's going to happen. So this is sort of the inner conflict. So, or even an outer conflict. I mean, it's part of the conflict that's in contrast to her inner motivation of being independent. So I mean, I keep coming back to Ubri, but I don't want him to be a total obstacle, because he's going to be, he's going to be good. He's going to be healthy for her, but maybe something with her other friends where they want to take her to, a celebration, a bonfire, or something they're doing, and that basically, because the path is so rough or going there is so difficult, she has to be led, she has to be helped to get there.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when we did the whole premise of the story. If I was trying to remember after the beach, where did we have her go anywhere or anything like that? What did we say, or maybe we didn't?
We basically had her go from the beach straight to hearing, the older priestess dies, or someone who is one of Naveen's chosen dies, and they come down and give her body to the water, and she sees she hears the dragon comes close to shore, one of the sea dragons, and that frightens her so much because she's heard Naveen's voice and she's supposed to swim out to the island, that she panics and goes straight on a mission to the other inner city to go see the waterfall at Winter's Keep. So we
Right.
don't have her ever leaving the beach. And being a short story, I don't want to have too many places for her to
But that
go.
that was exactly my thinking is that
Yeah.
if we need her to go to do something else and all that, it's gonna be a very long intro section of a story that will feel very boring.
Yes.
So I think if we can tie it to that funeral thing there
Okay.
instead, so that it's tied to something that needs to happen anyway, that would probably be better. So we don't waste pages and words on just a small point here.
Okay. But I'm trying to think, unless it's maybe there as an apprentice to be one of Naveen's chosens, there's certain rites that she's supposed to be doing, but to be part of it, she's got to be handed the things or dragged, put in the right spot, and she just doesn't know where she goes because she can't see where she goes.
Yes, but at the same time, of course, she is supposed to be secluded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess maybe could we have if they're having a funeral and she sees this and she's freaked out about it, and so could she maybe try or want to go over there or something, linked to her freaking out or something, and then she can't because maybe there's well, I don't know, jagged rocks or something. But on the other hand, we need to be careful because if she can't cross jagged rocks, how can she do a lot of the other things she does later?
Yeah, that's the tough one, and that's why my initial thought was just because we wanted to show her being a little rebellious, sneaking away. So I know we wanted to have even just mentions of her sneaking away with friends. And so that's why that one came to mind. But maybe if she's on the shore, I mean, she has to be a witness of some sort to the funeral
Yeah.
so that she can be near it.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be, maybe it would be for, I mean, elves don't die every day, so maybe one of Naveen's chosen is one of the few times where they do pull in the other apprentices or potential acolytes, whatever we want to call them. It wouldn't be that unusual. It's saying, hey, this only happens like once every 20 to 50 years, so you're going to take part in this and you're going to be there. But when the dragon comes, I agree, it shouldn't just be her not knowing what to do during the ceremony, but she should actively want comfort, actively want help. And I think that's what really turns it independence on her head. She's going to be wanting comfort. And when this dragon comes and she's totally freaked out about it, she grabs someone's hand and she says, help me get away, help me get away from here and get back away from the shore.
Yeah, I think that works. I think that the key here really is that we need to hammer home the point of the fact that she is conflicted about the fact that she wants help. She doesn't like the fact that she wants it, but at the same time, she is just pushed so far out of her own comfort zone that she has to.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be so much a terrain factor, but she's just
I agree. It's the emotional part. She needs to get away from there.
She's emotionally, and she's very scared, and maybe it's a place she's never been, so maybe there's a special place that's not even in the shore where she normally is with the tent, but it's a whole new place. She has basically, she's been kind of led through the ceremony. She has no idea which way she is, and maybe a wave hits her ankle and she's just like, oh my gosh, just help me get away from this place, and actively seeks comfort even though she doesn't want it at the moment at the same time.
And it could be Ubri helping her then.
I would love it if Ubri was helping her and being her
I think
comfort.
that would be good. Yes.
Okay, cool.
All right, the final piece of this section is the catalyst.
Okay.
This part should embody the premise somehow, and it is to enhance the internal conflict, making it as strong as the overarching plot of the story by pushing the hero into a situation where the only option is to face the past and decide whether to accept that terrifying wound or not. So your protagonist should be incredibly frustrated, vulnerable, and fully exposed to his or her deep-rooted fears at this point. And then we also wrote that we know that how humans are highly resistant to change, so the catalyst has to be something so huge that the protagonist realizes that there is no turning back. So for this reason, it's often worth considering what might feel counterintuitive. So what stakes would cause the protagonist to do something that she would never have dreamed of doing?
Okay, so is this one, would you say in a plotting terms, is this like, would this pivot to the inciting incident, or would this pivot towards the Dark Night of the Soul?
More the Dark Night of the Soul, in the sense that the catalyst has successfully been achieved when we have the protagonist basically put in a place or a situation where he or she can only fulfill one part of the internal conflict, right? So she can only either face the fact that the lie she's telling herself about that she's not good enough, she can either only face that and conquer it by figuring out that she is good enough, or she can try and fail, right? But so we're not kind of concerned right now about the outcome of what's going to happen. We're just going to install her in the situation and leave it there.
Okay.
So it's more about figuring out what is that thing that can push her so far.
Right. And I'm trying to think if, like, I know in terms of plotting, we've already talked about her, finding Askell, the master assassin, and rescuing him. If this Dark Night of the Soul, if this is the turning point of her character arc, if it's going to be something there, or if it's going to be something after she leaves the shore and is on her way to Winter's Keep.
It's more or less, I mean, it makes most sense that it's towards the end of the story, right? Okay. Because this is where we're going to show that she has changed.
Okay. So then if it's where she's changed, it's definitely either when she finds Askell or when she confronts his apprentice assassin and manages to help stop him. And that's also, so it's one of those 2 points to me, unless you see something else.
Well, I think as you're talking about that, it makes me wonder, those things that you're talking about is still her being very independent. She's being proactive. She's doing things. So that is all well and good. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't have, when she comes back at the end and she reconnects with her parents and she talks to her family, we should have something there where it's in one way or another, so that she comes to, well, it shouldn't be as easy as she just comes to terms with how she has changed, but
Mhm.
more like, I'm wondering if we could create something that makes that scene more impactful than just being like, yes, I returned," but if we can make something happen there where she actually has to face the fact that, she does matter, she is important.
Mhm.
Could one of her parents be like, well, the elves doesn't get sick, but could something had happened where it is her presence or something that alleviates some pain, or something that happens where she realizes that because I'm here, it actually makes a difference.
Okay. So I've just have to rethink, because I was thinking this is like, Dark Night of the Soul. So yours is really more of a wrap up to show the end of her character arc.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
at least how I'm thinking about it a bit,
Okay.
because I'm thinking that it's where we need to show, well, it could happen a bit earlier in the story as well, but of course, I mean, she has to face her lie
Mm-hmm.
straight on, right? And she's lying to herself in the sense that she's telling herself, I'm not worthy. And one of her defense mechanisms, so to speak, is her independence.
Right.
So if we're going to move her from I don't feel worthy to now I do believe that I'm worthy,
Mm-hmm.
it's that situation there that we need to confirm. What is that situation that can move a person from feeling like they're not worthy to realizing, well, I am actually.
Yeah, and that's why to me that's when I'm thinking of like the Dark Night of the Soul, or just that is the turning point of the character arc. So that's where they go from refusing to see that they've been lying to themselves, that she has this internal belief that she doesn't feel worthy, where she finally confronts that and says, I pretend to be independent, but I feel unworthy. Where she finally says, I've just been pretending to be independent because I feel unworthy, but I actually really can do this, and I am
Correct.
positive. So that really, to me, that's the Dark Night of the Soul. And to me, we have that mapped out when she's looking for something to heal her. She's looking for external healing, and when she gives that up to save Askell, and suddenly opens up her senses, where she's like, oh no, but I need to reach him, I need to help him. And she kind of opens up her senses, and she realizes that, hey, I can tell that the water and the waterfall and the wind is actually hitting a solid surface, and I know there's no cave there, and I know that, and that's fine because I'm helping him and I've chosen to do this. To me, that's her turning point.
Right.
So I think we've already mapped it out, unless we move it somewhere else. But to me, that is the moment she finally believes in herself. But I also think that there's a lot of things on the journey there
For
that
sure, for
she's going to
sure, for
have to
sure,
face.
for sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that, but I'm still wondering. I agree with that there is a turning point there, and that's probably where she starts believing. But
Mm-hmm.
I still think that her sense of belonging is essentially rooted in her family.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she really craves at the end of the day. She craves to feel a part of her family and feeling loved and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can definitely use that scene that you talked about to show that she starts realizing things, but it should probably play out in the final scenes there, in showing how that things has changed when she sees her parents again.
Yeah. Well, I just think that's not the catalyst, because catalyst means, the beginning of it. And I do think the ending does have to show that she has changed. And I also, maybe she finds a sense of belonging. I think she should find some acceptance with her parents, but I also think she needs to possibly realize that they're not her only family. Suddenly she has Askell's protection. She also has Ubri's returning, maybe some kind of nuance where they go to that extra step where, they finally kiss. They realize that it's not just friendship. And so her definition of family also expands, and that she has a place among many people. But I think that definitely is part of the wrap up.
Hmm.
but it only begins, the catalyst of all of that is deciding what, saving Askel's life, or at least helping him when he's injured and helping him to get up to Winter's Keep in the hospital there, or the
Yeah, I
healers.
agree, but I'm still struggling to see the link between that being about her not feeling worthy, or I mean, whether or not you feel worthy or not, you probably wouldn't just let somebody die, right? You would try to do something. Now, of course, I can probably see that when she then fights that other assassin in that room
Mhm.
when Askell is wounded, that'll take something to do that.
Mhm. I think
So
she's,
yeah,
well, that's to
maybe
me. I guess I
maybe
think,
that's the place.
yeah, maybe that's the place to me. Worthy is not doubting yourself, that you have value and worth. And the moment with Askell tells her that she has more abilities than she realized, and that's going to start her on the path that when she then helps tackle the other assassin, she feels more worthy. And then when she gets back home and she faces that she ran away and goes to the priestess, she even feels more and isn't like just scolded. She's treated as an adult. All of those will combine to like a final scene where she realizes she has a place and she is worthy for who she is. And part of that is her belief in herself, that, even just accepting Askell's offer, saying, "Hey, I think you'd make a good assassin," and her saying, "Yes, yes, I think I would as well." And so I'm going to go to the high
Yeah,
priestess and say, "You know what? I'm doing this, and I'm so sorry, but this is the path I want to take.
yeah,
How do I
yeah,
make that right?"
yeah, yeah. That yeah, I agree. That makes sense.
Okay.
All right, so I actually think we have more or less everything we need for Dramna now.
Oh, that's exciting.
The only other question was that I remember you talked about, maybe it was last week or the week before, but you mentioned Ubri and her parents and maybe Askell as some characters that maybe needed a bit more flesh on the bones.
Yeah, I don't want them to just, especially your parents, I don't want them to be stereotypes. I think Askell and Ubri, I think their characters will develop, but I don't want him to just be, some little love interest either. They should have some quirks and be fully fleshed, at least for secondary characters.
Yeah, because we actually have in the character auditing section, we have on the minor characters a statement or question that I think we can use here to just put something together for those. Because
Okay.
it says that you should create a unambiguous statement on how each of these minor characters will make the protagonist either think differently or take an action that would otherwise not have taken place. So
Oh.
if we can make a sentence like that for each of them, then I think we have some more depth to them.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So it puts it in terms of her. And I kind of want to, I mean, I think Ubri and Askell are the easier two without
Hmm.
having them be stereotypes. But so how does Ubri make her realize that she is worthy? Is that what the question would be, or the sentence would entail?
Well, it could be, or it could just be that it's because of him that she does something she wouldn't have done otherwise. So it
Okay.
could be linked to what you just said, but it could
Mhm.
also be just be something different. But basically, like, it's his presence and personality that
Okay.
makes her do something else,
Okay.
or do something she wouldn't have. Yeah.
I like that. I could almost see. Could you imagine him? Because I mean, we know he ends up in the guard later on, or it's the sort of the elven military. And we haven't decided if all elves have to go through that, or if that's something he chooses. But if it's something he chooses, I could see him being kind of a forthright character. He's kind of very honest to the core. And so that could be what makes her go to the high priestess and find out what's going on with Naveen, because she's like, this is something, Ubri would do, and I'm going to do this because it would be a good thing to have all the loose ends tied up.
Yeah, I guess that might work, but I'm also wondering if, because of, let's say, the love that grows between them, if it could cause her to let go of her, some sort of situation where she lets go of her need for being independent, or that she sort of allows him to fulfill that part of her role, or something like that, where it's just showing that she's putting, some faith in him that she normally only puts in herself.
Yeah, well, I definitely think so, because I think her affection for Ubri and growing romance and even a friendship with Askell will make her put aside her feeling of not having a place. Or even her definition of family or friends, just realizing, because we said up until as a teenager, she's going to have a hard time relating to people, and she's going to relate to them on a deeper level, and it'll redefine who she is. But I guess I was trying to use that to reflect on who Ubri is as a person, to kind of generate some traits for him, so he's not just like this little roughed-in figure of, okay, love interest, but who is he? What about him makes him special? Yeah,
I agree, that's important.
yeah. But I do agree, I think that's definitely because of who he is and how she connects with him, and even Askell on a deeper level finally finds friends that she's not holding at arm's length, because we said, as part of her enneagram, she kind of isn't really deeply relating to anyone. But
So it could just be because he's so trustworthy or something, that she feels comfortable with it.
Yeah, I could see that. Just, yeah, there's got to be something special about him that he's maybe out of everyone, maybe he doesn't always help her either. Maybe he kind of lets her prove herself a little bit, and maybe she kind of gets annoyed at him at first, but also realizes that, he lets her be slightly independent and thinks that she can do more than she realizes.
Yeah, I think that might be good. That we just need to make it very clear that it's not because he's an asshole that he doesn't help her. That he tries to, maybe he sees her true nature better than she sees herself.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, in a very nice way and supportive way, of course, but he's trying to help her see her true nature herself.
Yeah, I like that. That'll be I'll have some experience, because my husband likes doing that to me, and I know how she will feel, but I also know how, it feels really good when you do it yourself, and then you see everyone else struggling, and you're like, I figured that out years ago, people. So yeah, I think I can kind of pull some ideas for that one.
Yeah. Okay, but I think that's good if he's very trustworthy, and then he is seeing her for what she really is better than she sees it herself. We can use that, but then that'll definitely add some character to him.
Yeah, it really does. It gives him, I now have this feeling that he's trustworthy and kind and warm, but he's also like, nope, you go get it. And that's going to tick her off, but she's also going to be independent enough to go and do it. And yeah, it'll be this it'll have a little bit of a tension that becomes true affection. And I think that's really sweet.
That's what we go for.
I know it worked out for me. It's been 20 years, so it works fine. So that's a little bit more on Ubri. I'm so excited about him now. How about, can we find something for Askell? Something he does that makes her more, I mean, obviously there's got to be a lot. He's going to help her become a master assassin. Well, not a master, an assassin.
Yeah, and I think, unless you want to add some more, but I think we already have it a bit baked in the sense that he's the one who's going to believe in her and sort of say, you can do this thing, and convince her and so on. So I think that's already baked in, and I feel like because of the role that Askell has in the story, he will form as a pretty good character already, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's kind of, his mentor role is pretty well fleshed out. To be a mentor who's a master assassin and also in a bit of a pickle, he won't be too hard to flesh out.
Indeed.
How about her parents then, just to make them not just this overbearing, smothering her with love? I want them to be something a little more special than that.
Yes, this might be, I don't know if this is cliche because it just popped up in my mind so quickly. So that might be why, but I just thought about, could they have lost another daughter earlier on or something? And that's why they're so overprotective or something like that?
It could be.
Is that a cliche thing?
It's a little cliche. I think, though, especially the elves who hold family so important in their society, and if maybe linking it to the fact that they never had another child, because we have said that, she is the only child, I think, or did we have a sister? Now I can't remember.
No, I think she was the only one.
Yeah.
Our listeners will know. They've listened to it when we talked
Yeah.
about it.
We'll have to go back and read our notes, because at some point I just suddenly thought, oh wait, no, we mentioned maybe she would have a sister and she'd feel protective of that. But maybe I'm just, I was dreaming. But if she is an only child, I mean, again, my husband's an only child, and his mother has been incredibly overprotective because it's her only hatchling. I could see that she was the only child, she was born blind, they're very protective, and if we wanted to, maybe they didn't have a child after her, for it was a difficult pregnancy, and she's basically, the mothers just can't have any more kids, so they're very protective of her.
Yeah, that actually worked, because if it's so that because of the pregnancy that the mother can't have any more children, wouldn't that also play into her not feeling worthy? And so, I mean, isn't there some part of this where she might blame herself for, it was because I was born that my parents can't have any more children, or something
Yeah,
like that? I mean, wouldn't that play in there?
I could believe that, because yeah, I've heard a similar story before, so that I definitely could see playing into the story, that she feels like, oh, here I was born, I was a difficult birth, I was a difficult pregnancy, I was born blind, and my parents can't have any more kids, and I'm not perfect, and yeah, she's gonna have a whole bucket load of teenage angst right there.
Yeah, and then to then add more depth to the parents, well, we need to find something where it shows a bit more of their character as well. Because I think, I mean, we have all the overprotective stuff already. This is
Mhm.
sort of the result of them not being able to have another child. But it still doesn't really show character as such, yeah?
No, it doesn't show the warmth of them, like the other side of them and who they are as individuals, other than smothering parents, or sending her out to be one of Naveen's chosen, hoping that she, as we said, she will go so far, but she won't actually make it all the way, and so that she'll just be kind of like an associated woman in the priesthood with the Naveen's chosen, and have a standing and be safe that way. So don't want them to just be manipulative and smothering. Those are just, all of these are negative words. I want something that says these are good people.
I think we did talk about, at the end at least, when she returns, that they would be supportive of her wanting to do something else. I think we talked about that already, right? So at
Yeah.
least that, but of course that's just at the end as well. So I'm wondering if we could have something a bit earlier on that also shows their character a bit more, so it doesn't, like, otherwise we run the risk of it coming across as is in the beginning that they're just these overprotective, annoying parents, and then whoopty later she comes back and she's home, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, you've grown a lot, and we support you. We
Yeah.
need something to bridge that gap somehow.
Exactly, I think so too. And I mean, we sort of, we have them in the beginning wanting to, include her in in a celebration, a festivity that she can't take part in. So it's kind of nice of them, but there's got to be
Yeah,
something else. I don't want it to be like a wicked stepmother story that suddenly becomes the fairy godmother. It's got to be,
no, exactly.
there's got to be something in between. Yeah.
But of course, the thing is also that they are, it's only Dramna who's a point of view character, so we
Hmm.
can't even, otherwise we could have shown maybe, when Dramna goes off, that they are helping Ubri or some, then we could have shown something like that, which would show that they have more depth to them and they are caring people and so on. But because Dramna is not there, we can't show anything she can't see.
Exactly.
So
Though we do have Ubri as a bridge as well, that he could, maybe she's not willing to see it, but he could say, oh, they came to ask about you. They knew I was coming down today, and they, wanted to see how you were doing. Just something that is, I don't know, more off-putting. Or the other thing would be having them risking some discomfort. Like if we have the scene with them in storm, that they come afterwards, like in a hurry, trying to see if she was okay, and they tried to reach her in the storm, and they're like soaking wet and a little battered up
yeah, I
themselves.
think that's much better. Yes,
Okay.
because if they have a bit of skin in the game, so to speak, here, then that will show how much they actually care.
Okay,
So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so yeah, we'll have them, they'll have gotten caught out in the storm and just desperate to reach her and make sure she's fine. And that way when they come and she's like, yeah, I like fixed the tent myself. And but they can be like, oh my gosh, we're so happy, we were so worried. And maybe she can
Yes.
sit them down and give them tea and be like, look, I'm
Yes,
fine.
yes,
Yay.
indeed.
Okay, perfect.
All
Well,
right.
I feel better about them now. I'm glad.
So do we miss anything on characters, or should we then move on to something else next week?
I think we're ready to move on to something else next week. What do you have a hint of what's coming next?
Well, that's what we call the plot posts. So we're getting into all
Oh,
the inciting incidents and all those different things that probably most people, when it comes to plotting, have heard about before. So
yes. And all the
that's
things
the
I
stuff.
keep mentioning. Is this the inciting incident? Is this the intro? So we can actually go over those. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Sounds
stuff.
great. Well, have a fantastic week. I hope your cough loosens up a bit more and you don't get sicker.
Who knows?
Hopefully. Well, tell your family I said hi.
Yeah, you too, and have a good week as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Write the Story, a limited series podcast. Please consider to support. It will help us make more podcasts like this one in the future. Go to www.patreon.com/amwritingfantasy.